guys, this is Okadowski of WeAreChange.org here in Coney Island, Brooklyn, outside the iconic Nathan's hot dog. And just a couple minutes ago, everyone here in New York City got an emergency text message from the state stating, emergency, snow squall, whatever that means, warning till 5:30 p.m. It's 5:30 p.m. now. Sudden whites out, icy roads, slow down, NWS. So I thought, this would be an interesting time to do a little walk and talk. And in this specific walk and talk, we are going to be jumping into a lot of issues, but all under the umbrella of truth. And most importantly, how do you know if someone is telling the truth? How do you know, and how can you determine if someone's being honest or dishonest? Well, we're going to get into that, plus a lot more in this unique video, which of course I have very interesting findings on and experiences that I will share that you can't get anywhere else, especially since I've dedicated my life to telling the truth, to being better than the mainstream media that lies to you on behests of special interest, on the very powerful who manipulate information that make human beings suffer for their own personal benefit. As we're going to be walking around Coney Island, which has some interesting art here to say the least, but this is going to be an interesting video because I have a lot of experience in this. I've been working as a kind of activist and kind of as a reporter, mainly as an activist as a teenager, but as someone who's taken myself as a very serious reporter since the age of 21. So a very, very long time that I've dedicated my life towards reporting and telling people the truth that sadly is not that widely available. There's a very popular saying online that I've seen gone viral, and it says, doctors are drug dealers, teachers are brainwashers, and police officers are gangsters. And in certain instances, those are definitely true statements. Not always. And this is where I believe the biggest trap happens amongst many people who always try to see things as black and white, when in reality things are far more complicated and sophisticated than we know. I also get a lot of questions. By the way, this is going to be an interesting look because this is Coney Island during the winter. No one really sees Coney Island where everything's broken down during the winter. We're going to go on the little boardwalk here. And guess what? The weather's not as severe as the government warned us it was going to be. But that's a whole different thing that we could jump into. But a lot of people always ask me, how do we know we can trust you? Well, I always say, never trust anyone, especially if you're just meeting them for the first time. Now, you have to have this kind of gray middle ground in life where you trust some people and you don't trust other people, because anything that's too black and white will eventually lead to something that is going to be undesirable, something that's going to lead you astray, and something that is going to overall end up hurting you in one way or another. This is the black and white thinking that I mentioned earlier, of course, in this video. But when it comes to me, particularly, an individual is asking, how do we know you're not working for the Illuminati or the Mossad or you're a cover-up agent? I mean, one, I always tell people to judge people by the fruit of their labor. And I think if we approach this kind of approach towards our life to determine who is telling the truth, I think your chances of ending up towards the more truthful, honest place are going to be a lot higher if you just look at the track record of individuals. How long has this person been doing whatever action you may be trying to determine this person on, or whatever action you may or may not take with this person? Judge them by the fruits of their labor. Usually you know a lot about an individual, especially when you first meet them, especially even if you go on a date, about how they describe their past relationships. And many times, especially if you date a lot, you will see a repeating trend of people who usually see themselves as the victims, usually people who are narcissistic, usually people who don't take any self-responsibility. And you can see that by how a lot of people just judge other people as we walk here through the little bit of snow that happened during this emergency alert here in New York City. And the same goes for news reporters. Should I trust this news report? Well, where's this news and information coming out of? Is it coming out of a trusted outlet? Is it coming out of a trusted individual? Where are the sources, the documents, the videos, the photos? It reminds me of one particular incident. There's many of these that happen all throughout the country, but there's one particular incident of a viral video right now of a police officer in a school walking near middle school at that, a child who's less than 12 years old, walking along him and just body slamming him, attacking him, putting him above his head and dunking him on the ground twice, dragging him off. And in many instances, I believe in this one too, we always hear that the police officer felt like he was under attack. The officer felt threatened. All the way until these incidences happen and the video comes out, and guess what? There was no threat. There was no vicious attack. And many times it comes out that the people in authority weren't telling the truth. Another thing that I wish the majority of people would grasp and understand is just because someone has authority, just because someone has power, doesn't mean that they're right. And this to me is the biggest truth bomb that I wish people would just realize and understand in their life, that just because someone is viewed by others as great, as good, doesn't mean that they have your best interest at heart, doesn't mean that they're right, doesn't mean that they're honest, doesn't mean that they're truthful. And I would even say the higher of status, the higher of power, the higher of responsibility an individual, a group, or a state has, the more you should doubt it. Because that is when that state, that individual, has most to gain, because one, they have already gained a lot, and most to profit off of taking advantage of other people. And I'm talking about this in the generalized sense, like I brought up the situation with doctors, teachers, and police officers, which I believe should be viewed at a very skeptical light. Now, there are some individuals in those particular groups that I mentioned that are outstanding, amazing individuals. I even had a teacher here growing up in New York City who, by the way, was also a lifeguard. That was an incredible teacher that poured his soul and his energy into teaching kids not what the state wanted us to know, not what the government wanted us to know, not what these centralized learning institutions wanted us to learn, but really he sat down and had a lot of time with us inside and outside of class, where he talked about the way that the system takes advantage of individuals, the way that the system uses individuals, chews them out, and spits them out in complete misery because of people's ignorance. And he spent a lot of his time dedicating towards making sure that we wouldn't fall prey, we wouldn't fall victims to the larger, bigger institutions out there that do eventually hurt people, that sadly a lot of people don't know about. You don't really get an education, you get an indoctrination in school, and it's pretty pathetic. Overall, my experience in the New York City public school system, outside of a few teachers who actually cared and gave a damn, was absolutely traumatic, absolutely mind-blowing when I look back at it, the amount of not just ignorance, but violence and abuse that people had to go through in the public education system here in New York City. I am flabbergasted at the levels of treatment that kids have to go through at such a young age in our education system. So again, the bigger something is, the more powerful it is, the more it should not be trusted, the more there should be skepticism. Now, another way that I determine whether something or someone or source or a story that I'm working on is honest and truthful is pretty much the old-fashioned way. And they teach this in a lot of kind of law enforcement, because I've been actually studying and looking into this. It's kind of, as I've been working as a journalist for so many years, it's kind of already like a sixth sense within you. As you know, I also confronted a lot of politicians, pissed them off, and confronted them about issues that no one else has ever dared to confront them on. Went after them about things that they've done that they thought that they got away scot-free. Bad things. And I was able to walk up in a microphone, right up in their face, eye to eye, be like, hey, I know what you did. And the other way, the 3 steps that I'm talking about here, this is the third one, is of course, not only your gut intuition, your gut instinct, but also just seeing someone's body language, seeing someone's eyes. You could very much determine if they're being an honest human being or not. And many times when I confronted, let's just say Tony Blair is the confrontation that really sticks out to me. I think it was one of my best confrontations ever, because it proved, we did this a couple times, there's politicians that were literally running away from us. We asked them the question, they literally politicians make, arrest this guy, Hillary Clinton's, get security in here, for just a simple question. I remember Charlie Rose, who was a disgraced news anchor that had many serious allegations against him now. But before that, when he was still celebrated and a part of the Bilderberg group, I remember confronting him, and this man just booking. I confronted him like 3 times. Every time he saw me, every time I looked at him eye to eye, I once gave him a softball question. He didn't realize who he was talking to. This was, I believe, the 3rd time. And then I asked him the hard-hitting questions. What'd you do at Bilderberg? And these other stuff that he was also tied into. Once I started bringing up all those other serious questions, dude just started booking it. Started running. And a lot of times when someone is guilty, especially if you look at Prince Andrew, Pinocchio Prince, that's the best example of them all. The facial expressions, the micro expressions, the eyes, the lips, the body posture, the physicality screams at you. And you could study this, and you could look at this in many different ways and many different examples. And some people become experts on this because they study this in extreme due diligence. And you could also do the same if you want. And when you do so, you could see the telltale signs of a liar. The body usually exhibits it. There are really good professional liars. Some people call them presidents. And they've been trained meticulously by PR experts and geniuses to use NLP and to many times convince themselves of bigger lies to, of course, tell to the general public. Many politicians are trained in this. Many celebrities are trained in this. But again, no one is perfect. No one is infallible. There's good politicians, sometimes, very rarely. That's like saying that's like saying you can win the lotto. And there's also a lot of bad politicians, but there's still, some people who win the lotto once out of a couple million. But there's still a chance. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying here? But ultimately, you kind of do develop a sixth sense, and you do deep down know in your gut whether someone or something is being honest. I remember being in relationships and not wanting to believe, noticeably just blinding myself to clear warning signs that I saw in other individuals, and I just literally ignored it because I didn't want to believe it, because I was in such a honeymoon phase, because I was so infatuated. I knowingly knew something was deep down wrong, and then kaboom, the relationship explodes. It doesn't go that well through, of course, my own ignorance. And there's been instances where I did listen to my gut, and I opened up to more honest communication, and I tried to, of course, get down to the bigger truths and not be lied to, not be cheated on. And every time I listened to my gut, it always wasn't easy, but it always worked out for the best. Every time I didn't listen to my gut, I had a very serious lesson to learn. And throughout my career in journalism, throughout even my dating career, holy cow, I have learned a lot of serious lessons. And they're not always easy. The truth is not always easy to consume, but you're better off because of it. And I hope you got an insight in some of the ways to find out what is honest and what is dishonest, what is truthful and what is lies, and how you could believe someone and how you cannot believe someone. Just to reiterate the three: always judge someone by the fruits of their labor. If they have high status, that means they have a high probability of profiting off of you. And always trust your intuition, but always be skeptical of the more powerful individuals. Because again, you can't always be too skeptical. You can't always be too mistrusting, because that life is also a life that I don't want to live as an individual. I don't always want to be an individual who is insecure, who is scared, who is always on guard. But that's a whole nother video that I'm going to make on this YouTube channel. You got to find a happy medium. And this is why I'm going to reiterate: the bigger status person, individual, the more likelihood it is that you should be just a little bit skeptical. That's my take on it. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. If this video is helpful, share it with your friends and family members, because YouTube and Google and Alphabet, working with the Pentagon and military-industrial complex, definitely won't. But because you amazing human beings watch these videos, share them, I'm still able to somehow miraculously be here. And trust me, with everything we have to go through, with all the odds against us, I am flabbergasted that we are still here. And in large part, that's because of you. That's why I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.